Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to the channel. We are going to continue on tonight with the transmission build. We just have a few more parts left within this series. Tonight we're going to be turning our attention to the Overdrive extension housing. I do have to pull that apart just to check everything out. It's a good idea to go ahead and there's an 800-pound spring in here that we're going to take over to the press and press it down, and then there is a snap ring here, and then there's a retainer ring on this hub right here. So this is what we have apart thus far. We got the two snap rings out to get it out of the overdrive extension housing, and then this is your round metal snap ring to keep your clutches up top here in place. As you can see, these clutches are in pretty good condition. There's really no burning, no marks on the steels at all. So these, like I said, these actually could be put back in and used just fine, but we have all new, so we're going to go ahead and put them in. Actually, right here is a comparison to this is a new clutch here for the overdrive, and this is what we took out. So there's really no difference between the two, other than the way the material is formed onto the metal ring that it's on. So like I said, there's not much difference there as far as the life expectancy within the clutches that we took out as far as the overdrive, and then the clutches we're going to put in. Here's one of the new steels. Same thing. They're in really good condition. So I don't know why I might hang on to the steels, but if we have some issue, I may hang on to just all the sets of clutches. And then right here is the pressure plate that we're going to be installing. It's another one of those so that has been milled compared to the old one. That way we can add an extra steel and an extra friction. Alright, I got my overdrive in the press here, and I do have this little spring retainer that's inside here. This is my homemade tool I made. This is a 3-inch outside coupler for PVC. Got that plate on there to span the whole perimeter. You only want to press it down far enough to get this snap ring out and to get this retainer ring out. Going up slow so there's no binding. You can see how many clutches and steel has actually come up and out of there. We'll take this back over to the bench, take it apart, inspect it, and we'll put it together piece by piece. Alright, with this out of the press, we can finish disassembly. This is the spring that is so infamous and why it is so difficult to get this unit apart. It is very strongly advised, do not try and take this apart using anything other than an H-press. If you don't have one of those, take it to your local transmission shop and I'm sure they'd be glad to take care of this part of the build for you. Go ahead, remove the gear, make sure there's no pitting, no galling. All the gears, this gear is all in pretty good shape. You do have a thrust washer right here. You can check them bearings, make sure everything's good. If your kit has thrust washers in it, go ahead and put the new one in there. Then you got your interplanetaries. You want to check all of those, make sure they're good and tight. Make sure everything's good on that sprag bearing inside the housing. And then there is, if you want to change your output shaft, there is another snap ring right here. You take that out, and that's what allows you to be able to pull your snap ring and or be able to pull your output shaft and change it. Everything here looks pretty good, so we can go ahead and start, get everything cleaned up and start reassembly. You do have one more thrust washer down inside, just below the sprag gear too, or the sprag bearing. You want to change that, or I'm sorry, check that, make sure everything's good with it. Be very careful with these because these rollers will pop out. And pay attention to the way you took it out. Now with disassembly complete, we can start lubing everything up and putting it back inside the overdrive. One thing I'm going to do first is I'm going to take this hub assembly back over to the press, and I'm going to put it back together, this portion right here, before we put it back inside the overdrive. So with your spring in there, and everything lined up, this can actually go back over to the press, and this piece can be assembled and put your retainer ring back on. Alright, with that put back together, we can go ahead and start the rest of our reassembly. Go ahead and put your planetary down in there. After you have it cleaned, put your thrust washer back on. These will only go on one way. When you put your plate in there, make sure you got your flat surface up for your first friction. Drop that in, and then we'll start with alternating frictions and steels. Finish that off with your ring there. Now we'll take it back over to the press and put this snap ring in place. I don't have an alignment tool, so to keep everything lined up, I'm going to use my intermediate shaft. Alright, I had to go back through and realign everything because I forgot to put the intermediate shaft in there or your alignment tool as I was dropping this hub down in place, so I had to pick everything up and realign it. So we'll take this over to the press now and go ahead and push this down and reinstall our snap ring. Alright, ordinarily you could use the same tool to put this together as you did to take it apart, but since I'm using my intermediate shaft as my alignment tool, I'm using just a long piece of PVC as my press, and then I have it sitting down on my X blocks of my H press. And you only need to go down far enough to be able to put this snap ring in. Make sure it's seated and you can release your press. Alright, with all that done, we can go ahead and reassemble everything inside of our extension housing. After you get it down so far, just spread this snap ring open and it should drop down in place on that outer bearing. After that's done, you can turn it back over and put your other set of clutches in. Now, since I'm adding an extra set of clutches, there's a wavy snap ring and then there's a flat snap ring. We're going to go ahead and delete this wavy snap ring. We're not going to put it back in at all. After you get snap ring in there, you can start putting in your clutches. Starting with your machined pressure plate first, putting your lip down. After that goes a friction and a steel, and a friction and a steel alternating. Get that in, you can take your round wire snap ring and put it in place. With all that done, now we need to grab a couple of other pieces. Need to get the apply piston, the spacer, and the thrust washer and put on there. and make sure we have good clearance between the apply piston and the first steel here. Alright, to make sure you get adequate clearance within your apply piston, what you want to do is you're going to have your spacer. First you're going to put your thrust washer on there, your bearing, put your spacer on, take your piston, put it face down with your 2 tabs up, get your dial indicator, and on this steel right here, your last steel, set your dial indicator down on your steel and bring your caliper down until it touches. You take that measurement, which is 734 thousandths, and write that down. You take the thickness of your apply piston, which is 609 thousandths, and subtract that from 734, and then that leaves us with 125 thousandths right there. To check this clearance, I went online and did that because I don't have all the measuring devices and tools and stuff that the ATSG book wants me to do. So actually I found that on Garen's YouTube page, how to measure that, and he said that we wanted anywhere from 120 or 100 to 150 thousandths. So we're right there in the middle. So clearance on the overdrive housing is fine. If you do need to change and you are off, these steels are replaceable for different thicknesses. All right, with that, the overdrive housing is 100% complete. It is ready to go back on the transmission. I did see one other video where the guy took out the round wire snap ring and put in another steel plate, and then he measured, of course the steel plates are 67 thousandths, and he measured the clearance then in between the top of the apply piston he grabbed a pick and he pulled up on that, and he measured that clearance that he was pulling up on, took that measurement, added it to the 67 thousandths, and he come up with his measurement that way. So like I said, we're at 125 thousandths, and according to Garen, that's within the acceptable range, 100 to 150 thousandths. So we're right smack dab in the middle. So we're just going to leave it there with the shim that is available, or the shim that did come in this overdrive. Tomorrow we'll start with the intermediate shaft assembly. There's some thrust washers and stuff in there. There's some planetaries. There's some ring gears and stuff we want to check. Make sure there's no galling, no pitting on any of these gears. Put this stuff back together with the snap ring, and then we'll also change the bushing in the pump, check some pump clearance, make sure everything's good there. Hopefully we can accomplish all that within one video, I'm hoping. And then after that, we're ready to start assembling everything and putting it back in the case. So to me, that's pretty exciting. It's come a long way from where it was, from where I started, and I've learned a lot along the way. So I hope you guys have also. With that being said, if you don't mind, hit that like button, give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you have not already done so, and we'll talk to you guys later.